The tzaddik is not just a righteous person that he's a good guy. A tzaddik, the way it's defined in the Tanya, is one who has unbelievable, holy, pure insides and out. And because once you're perfect on the inside, the only thing that's able to come out is going to be holy things as well. So that's you could do a tzaddik test to figure that out. But now with the Tanya in chapter 10, what it's really doing, if you remember from chapter 1, we actually defined 2 types of tzaddiks and 2 types of Rasha. I'm not expecting anyone to really remember that. It was several months ago, and we really just glossed it over in a line on chapter 1. But the way we quoted it from the Talmud is that there's really 5 levels. Instead of it being just the tzaddik, the righteous, the Rasha, the wicked, and the middle is the in-betweener, the Beinani, we actually divided it into 5. We said that tzaddik itself has 2 categories. There's a complete tzaddik and an incomplete tzaddik. Exactly, very good, Shira, an incomplete tzaddik. In Hebrew, it's called a tzaddik gamor and a tzaddik she'enei gamor. A complete tzaddik and a tzaddik who is not complete, who is not perfect. The same is going to be on the flip side. The Rasha also has a category of a Rasha, a wicked, that is incomplete, which means he's not fully wicked, and a complete, full, total Rasha. So instead of it being just one category of Rasha and one category of tzaddik, in chapter 10 we see it's divided into 2 categories: 2 tzaddik, 2 Rasha. In chapter 10 we're going to go through the 2 levels of tzaddik. I think they're going to be very relevant. It may at points seem almost depressing, and we'll get to that, because it may seem almost that's totally not within range. I can never reach that level, but I want to get to that, and hopefully we'll talk about it. Maybe it's a little harder feeling it over a computer, but hopefully I'll be able to get a message across on that thing. If you remember in chapter 6 and 7, I think Maddie was reading that part, we learned that according to Tanya, there's no such thing as neutral. Either something is selfless, which means it's fully holy, it's for a greater purpose, or it's having self-interest. Not necessarily is it automatically klipa, but it's what we call klipat noga, which means a transparent or a shining klipa. It's something that you're doing for yourself, but it's very redeemable. You could eat, but if you're doing it for, even if you're eating for yourself, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to use that energy and learn Torah, or drink my coffee, I'm going to drink and have better focus, or whatever you're doing, you're right away able to redeem that quality to be considered holy. So either it's holy, or it's which is either it's holy, or in the Aramaic words, it's called sitra achra, or it's on the other side. But a lot of it is redeemable. A lot of it could be elevated and brought back up. So now we're going to focus, understanding that point, we're going to focus on the lower level, the lower category of a tzaddik. It's called a tzaddik viralo, which means a tzaddik, and it's let me try to find the right words of how, let's see, is that Maddie? That's so cool, Maddie. Hey, you raise your hand. Yeah,
Hi, Rabbi.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, do you have any examples of who you would deem a tzaddik, either alive or not?
Yeah, I'm actually, hopefully by the end of today, you're going to be able to come up with a lot of examples, both of a tzaddik and of a Rasha. I'm going to be giving you a lot of examples. But the leaders, it's a very, actually the Tanya, you know, and Maddie, actually a good point. In these 2 categories of a tzaddik, in the Tanya itself, towards the end, he literally lists just a few people that attain the level of a complete tzaddik. It's like they're fully righteous. If you ever heard of a Jewish holiday, it's one of those minor holidays, but it should be a major holiday. It's called Lag BaOmer. It's coming up actually in May.
Yeah.
It celebrates the passing of a great sage, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and I specifically use the word celebrates is because he actually wanted his day of passing to be a celebration. So I doubt this year it's going to happen, but usually every year around 500,000 people, Jewish people, flock to his tomb in Meron, which is in the north part of Israel, Actually, I had that on my schedule to go to. I was supposed to be there a couple of days ago, right, Shira? I think it was on your schedule also. I'm not sure. So this Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was considered one of these complete tzaddiks. And the Tanya will analyze specifically, but hopefully with a little more examples, it'll become a little clearer. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. So we know that holiness, back to the tzaddik, a tzaddik is someone who everything he's doing is with a holy urge. His inside is complete. And the way we translated holiness is absolute surrender. In Hebrew, the word was a bitul, which I think Maddie wanted to name the middle name of her dog, Bitul. Surrender or bitul means that I'm fully a conduit for what the divine, what God wants in this world. I'm a channel, and I'm fully surrendered to it. So we explained and analyzed that a lot of people look at surrender as a very weak quality, that if you surrender at war, it shows that you lost. But in truth, according to Torah and in AA and many other places, surrender is actually allowing allowing yourself to fully be connecting without any of you putting up a blockage. It's full transparency. So a tzaddik, if you look at a tzaddik, you almost see godliness radiating because he doesn't have any selfish wants. All he wants is what God wants. That's a tzaddik. So when we say that there's an incomplete tzaddik, which is the lower category of a tzaddik, which we're discussing now in chapter 10, it means that he has a little bit of self still, but it's so insignificant. Let me just figure this out. I'm just looking in the Tanya. Let me take that back. A tzaddik is one that's fully holy and surrendered. So then it seems like both categories of tzaddik, if they're already called a tzaddik, they're both fully surrendered. The evil, the way, and just to go back one more time, evil, the way we understand it in Tanya, doesn't mean he's a bad person, he's robbing a bank. Evil necessarily, or the way it's understanding in Tanya, Ra, is someone who just has selfish wants, which not necessarily is evil the way it's translated in the world. It's just someone who's thinking about themselves only. A tzaddik is someone who doesn't have any of that. All he wants is what God wants. So then what we have to now understand, they both have perfect insides and outsides, both categories of a tzaddik. They both have perfect soul powers, the way their chachma, bina, das, their inquiry, their cognition and their recognition, and analyzing anything that's coming into their realm, and also the way they feel about things, both internally and also the way they express it out in the world, in their clothing. Both categories are called the tzaddik. So, and what's the difference? So I'm and hopefully, Maddie, this will be helpful to understand the difference between these two tzaddiks. I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one is going to be a little bit gross, but that's the first thing that came to mind. And I hope you're not eating breakfast now, but how much rat hair or mouse hair do you think that you've consumed in your lifetime? Hopefully not too much. And according to the USDA, or even in halacha, in Jewish law, what you have consumed is actually insignificant. It's such a small amount that, let's say when it comes to Jewish law, right, Shira's a nurse, and Vivian as well, so you have extra understanding to this, right? It's so little that it's not dangerous. In halacha, there's a terminology of something that is nullified when it comes to kosher. If, let's say, a drop of milk falls into a huge pot of chicken soup, while you're not allowed to do that, very good, Shira, it's 60, it's not allowed to be done. But if there's 60 times the amount of chicken soup in relation to that one amount of drop of milk, it's actually considered nullified. It's insignificant. There's not even a taste there anymore. And therefore, it's actually, you could continue to eat it. You're not allowed to do it originally, but if you did it, it's okay. It's similar to rat hair. You don't plan to eat rat hair, but in case you did, it's probably just a little hair in your bowl of cereal that it's insignificant. It's not harmful to you. Yes, Maddie?
No, sorry. I Forget it.
No,
Thank
please
you.
ask. Don't worry. I could use some feedback over here.
No, I was just listening, and then when you said, "Oh, I hope you're not eating," I was about to say, "No, I'm not. Thank goodness."
Good, perfect. So I'll give you some other examples. When you drink water from your sink, and the Novato, San Rafael, maybe it's a little different, but there is some, I don't know if it's called poison or toxin, I'm not sure what it is, but there's something in there that could be harmful, but it's so small of an amount, 0.01, that it's insignificant and it's actually not harmful. If you would have a big amount of it, it could be dangerous, but since it's only a small amount, it's actually considered insignificant. It's considered as if it's not even there. Or if you think about the clothing you're wearing, you put detergent in it when you wash it in the laundry. If a lot of that detergent could actually be harmful, and it could ruin your clothing, or it could rub on your skin. But a small, minuscule amount is actually considered insignificant. That's actually with most things. With some things, obviously, there's exceptions. If you take the coronavirus, it's such a I don't even know what it is, but it's something you can't even see, and yet it could be so harmful, as we all are fully aware now. Maddie, you had another question? Oh, she choked on her hair. So those are just examples to explain to you by the tzaddik. The lower category of a tzaddik is one that there is some self. It's just so insignificant. It's in the words of the Tanya in chapter 10, where the way we're going to learn it inside, it's actually like it's sleeping. It's like almost unconscious. It's there, it just never wakes up. So it's like that rat here that a person could eat, but it doesn't do anything to the person because it's so insignificant. It's almost like fully ran out of town. It's just a little bit that was left there. So the way that means by the tzaddik is the yetzer hara, which is that evil voice that wants you to be very selfish and wants you to do things that is the king that's in control, that will do negative things. It doesn't have a voice. So that's the insignificance of this negative trait of the tzaddik. So it's called a tzaddik v'ra lo, which means he's righteous, but there is a little bit of ra, which is evil, that he still does possess. It's so small that he's a tzaddik, because that's the only voice that's talking. But there is a little insignificant rat hair, or a little insignificant want that never speaks up, that is not even really in his kingdom anymore, but it's still somewhere insignificant, but still somewhere there. It's become diluted. It's like on sleep mode. Does that make sense to everyone so far? First of all, am I clear? You're able to hear me? Am I freezing? Oh, maybe I am. Oh, am I clear? Am I freezing? I'm clear.
I think we lost you.
What did you say, Maddie?
We lost you.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, am I back? Let's see.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So the next part, I'm just going through the chapter a little bit outside. Okay. Thank you, Shira. I'm okay now. So if indeed it is so insignificant, why is it even there? Like, what does it help that it's a tzaddik that still has this insignificant part? So the difference is like this. So really what I'm trying to explain now is what's the difference between these two categories of a tzaddik is by this incomplete tzaddik, there's so far I gave you two names for it. Either it's a tzaddik that has some ra, some negative, some evil, which according to Tanya, evil doesn't mean you're robbing a bank. According to Tanya, evil just means some selfish wants over there. Whereas the another term is an incomplete tzaddik. So by this incomplete tzaddik, what differentiates him from the complete tzaddik is that, take the analogy of King Solomon again, that kingdom, that the two kings are fighting for control. By this incomplete tzaddik, the godly soul, the holy soul, is fully in control. Is fully in control. He subdued the enemy. He subdued the other king. He subdued the animal soul, the selfish wants completely. But all he did was subdue it, which means the enemy is not going to fight back. The enemy knows better. It's weak. It's chained up. It doesn't even have a voice to forget about recruiting others to join him. It doesn't even have a voice to speak up itself. They're able to live peacefully. So in that small city, they are fully living at peace with you. They're not friends with you. They're not yet an ally. That's a full transformation. By the incomplete tzaddik, that did not happen yet. It just doesn't start up. It's not a threat to the kingdom anymore. So the way I'm just trying to explain this is you have the incomplete tzaddik. What differentiates the incomplete tzaddik from the complete tzaddik is that by the incomplete tzaddik, there's still an iota, a sleeping dose of selfish wants that is fully subdued, and it doesn't even have a voice anymore. It's insignificant, but it's still there. It's still every now and then showing up, but not even able to catch your attention really. But let me just right away, you'll see the contrast and understand the difference. But higher than that is when you're able to fully transform. When that enemy not only is subdued and at peace, that enemy actually becomes an ally. In the way we learned it at the end of chapter 9, it's called an Aramaic word in Kabbalah. It's actually called it hapra, which means it's fully transformed. That animal soul actually has the same desire for godliness. It has the same excitement, and even more, because the animal soul is much more passionate. It's much more emotional. And it's using its passion for godly wants, a godly desire. It's running after mitzvahs and has such an enjoyment in it. That's when it's became an ally. So the way there's a Yetzer Tov, which is the good inclination. There's a Yetzer Hara, which is the evil inclination, which wants you to do things just for yourself, like that animal soul. And by the tzaddik gamor, which is the complete tzaddik, that tzaddik, he or she, has a full transformation, which means that negative voice is actually added as another good voice. That Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination, has now become a second good inclination to you. It's become almost like a second godly soul for you. So now you actually not only are not at war anymore, you actually have an ally on your side. So far we gave, I'm just going through chapter 10 over here. I gave you two terms for a tzaddik. You have a tzaddik gamor, which is the complete tzaddik. Another term for the tzaddik gamor, the complete tzaddik, is tzaddik v'tov lo, which means a tzaddik, but he or she has good in him or in her, meaning there's no insignificant amount of rat hair that is still present, just dormant. By the tzaddik complete, it's good for him, which means they only have good. They only have selfless, fully surrendered. Another term at the end of Tanya, and this is Maddie, where it gets to you, it calls them under a very spiritual term, again, a very Kabbalistic idea. They're called at the end of chapter 10, the last few lines, they're called B'nai Aliyah, which means children of ascension, children of transcendence. And maybe that's a good word. An Aliyah, we know, is when a person moves to Israel, they go up. It's called an Aliyah. Or when they go up to the Torah, usually a Torah is on a bima, which is on a platform raised up. So it's called being raised up to the Torah, both physically but also spiritually. You get elevated on a spiritual high. In terms of a tzaddik, is someone who's called a b'nai aliyah, people of aliyah, which means they're actually transforming everything around them to a very elevated place. So the Tanya lists out Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was actually the author of the spiritual mystical dimension of Judaism, the book of the Zohar, which actually a lot of Tanya is quoting the Zohar, this book called the Zohar, that was authored by Rabbi Bar Yochai. So he's considered one of those people that is fully transformed. And actually in Jewish law, we don't really have them today. In Jewish law, this is brought in the Talmud, people that are on that level, they don't even have to interrupt their Torah study to pray. All of us, there's times that we have to study every day, and there's times we have to pray. Shema has to be said in the morning and in the evening. Tefillin has to be worn by day. There's certain times for our prayers. But these people that are fully transformed, they actually don't even interrupt for prayers. It said, apparently, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, this great author, didn't need to pray. Because prayer is a time of war. You have your needs that you need to have met. You're fighting with your other side, and you need that time of meditation to fully be focused. They didn't need that because they were already fully, there's two yetzer tovs. There's no negative trait that they're fighting with, and they would actually just learn Torah the whole time. We don't have that now. So it's really, it's a little depressing, meaning it's you know, I want to pause here for a moment. Understanding now what a tzaddik is, and you'll see soon, seeing what a Rasha is, it may put a person in despair. And usually when a person is learning Tanya, at some point, usually around chapter 10 or 11, is when a person says, oh man, I'm never going to get there. A tzaddik is totally wholly surrendered. When am I ever going to get there, if ever? And what's important to know, what I understand, is that it's not necessarily a lifelong goal and destination that we have to reach that level of a tzaddik. Because in fact, this book is called the Book of the In-Betweener. But there are times in our life when we can strive for a tzaddik moment, an altruistic, genuine, holy, pure moment of our time, which means it's not a constant place where we can always be, but we can strive to have a tzaddik moment. And hopefully we'll get to that a little more, but it could sound depressing at times. But let's continue. So far what we know is they have a complete tzaddik, which is fully transformed both himself or herself, and also transformed the world around them, which means everything within their range, they already utilize as fully surrendered to holiness. That's his or her whole focus. And that's a person who, let's go back to the tzaddik now that we understand a little more of the complete tzaddik. Back to the incomplete tzaddik. The incomplete tzaddik is a person who's totally spiritually attuned, but a lot of it could be for his own enjoyment. He could be involved in a spiritual path, but it's really just to quench his own thirst. There's a little bit of self-interest. Actually, what's very interesting is now there's a lot of rabbinical fights. I mean, there's always rabbinical fights, but it's what we love doing. But most of the world is shut down in the world at large, which means businesses, etc., but also in the Jewish world. Never, I think it's unprecedented. Never before has there been a time when the rabbis are the ones saying, shut down the shul. It's forbidden to pray with a minyan. It's forbidden to read from the Torah, which you need a minyan to do. When we were in the Spanish Inquisition and the Romans, whatever, there was always a fight, especially from the rabbis, to hold on to what is sacred, to hold on to what is ours. The previous Rebbe in Russia, the communists were trying to kill every chassid possible. They were the arch enemy of Mother Russia, of the Soviet Union, and the Rebbe fought, and many of his chassidim were killed on the spot and sent to decades of exile in Siberia and elsewhere. But they fought, and over here we're living through a time that the rabbis are the ones saying, shut down the shul. It's life and death, and we'll get back to it. But right now it has to be shut down. And what we found is there's many people, you see this in Israel more, there's many people who are fighting what the rabbis are saying, and saying, no, we're gonna do the minyan anyway. And they're gonna do whatever they can to keep a minyan going, even though that perhaps one person has it and is going to another 9 people that are there. I'm not gonna get too into it, but what you could almost see that their minyan, I saw this from a rabbi posting it, that they should never be able to pray with a minyan again, because their praying with a minyan is actually like idol worship. It's a pretty extreme term, but they're doing it for themselves. They were never doing it for God. They just wanted a minyan because it made them feel good. There was a self-interest involved in their whole minyan prayer, because now the rabbis are saying it's forbidden to pray with a minyan. That's what the Torah is saying, is to stop. and yet they're continuing it. So it's almost like they're doing it with a self-interest, and it seems like whatever. So I don't want to get too much into that, but a tzaddik viralo, a tzaddik, an incomplete tzaddik, is one who has a little bit of self-interest. It's not even brought out. Let's take this to a relationship. In a relationship, a person could do the right thing for your spouse, but they're doing it because they love doing it anyway. So they're doing the right thing and their spouse is very happy, but it's really self-serving. A person likes to go outside anyway. So yeah, they'll take their garbage down, or they will mow their lawn because they like gardening. So they're really doing what their wife asked them to do, but they're doing it also with a self-motivation, which I'm not saying is bad. I keep on doing it, but it's more, it's also, there's a self-serving part. By a tzaddik, there's no self-serving. He's fully doing it just because it's what God wants. He's surrendered. It's not even about self anymore. So we could all have a tzaddik moment, and we may not be in a full state of it, but you have to keep in mind, and have that at least as a reminder that at times where we are able to experience and to reach that state of a tzaddik. And it's also good to learn this chapter because at times a person may feel fully in control, fully on a higher pace. I'm a full tzaddik. And you have to bring yourself down and realizing that you're not all there yet. You may be flying high, and it's important to have a mashpia, which is a mentor, a spiritual friend, like almost like you have a physical trainer. You need a spiritual trainer that helps you implement these tzaddik moments in your life. So I hope that's clear for a tzaddik. And now I want to just flip it. We still, before, it may be helpful if I just read I just put together my notes over here. I just may as well just already combine chapter 10 and 11. Because once we're already talking about the tzaddik, which is in chapter 10, let's already see the Rasha, which is in chapter 11. So just like we have two levels of a tzaddik, the complete tzaddik and the incomplete tzaddik. Maddie, do you have a question?
No. Yes, I actually wanted to ask a quick question.
Sure. Go for it.
If you have I'm just trying to put it really quickly. So if you're doing something that you know is going to please someone else, or you're doing something that you think is good, or if a tzaddik is doing something that they think is good, that's going to serve God and also serve the situation, would a pure tzaddik not have any form of self gratification? So they wouldn't actually feel great about what they're doing. That doesn't even come into it. Or they're just fully serving God, so their own feelings and their own sense of joy about it doesn't come into it. Does that make sense?
Exactly. I think the second way you said it, which means they don't even put it this way.
I wanted to understand
you know what? Actually, the word you said is satisfaction, which I'm going to be giving a Yiddish class at 12. So hopefully this will come up then. Is nachas is like joy and satisfaction when you have nachas. I think that's the word. It's a good word for it. The tzaddik, all he wants is to give nachas to God. That's all he cares about. There's no, it's something it's hard to even relate to, but there's no satisfaction when we give a gift to a spouse, for example. You're giving it because you love that person, but there's also that feeling, whew, I got that out. I did a good anniversary gift, and you feel good that you got the right thing. You made her or him happy, and it makes you feel good. By a tzaddik, they don't have that feeling. That's not even any part of it. So that's a good point, Maddie. It's for a lot of us, it's almost usually unattainable to be fully doing it.
Wow.
Even a person could fast on Yom Kippur, and there's a person, there's these stories of a person who fasted for 50 Yom Kippurs consecutively. And then they were weak one Yom Kippur, and the rabbi said, you have to eat something. It's the life and death, and you need to put something in your mouth. And they said, no, I've been keeping this track record going for 50 years. I'm not giving in. It comes out that all those 50 years of Yom Kippur fasting was really for self. It's telling, right? So in terms of, it's a very good question, Maddie, like Shira's writing. it's almost unattainable because it just makes sense to feel good when you're doing good for others. A tzaddik doesn't even have that feeling because it doesn't care about anything about self. It's fully altruistic. It's fully selfless. It's fully surrendered. It's a very high level to get to. So now the mirror of this, Don, are you still there? Because you're the only person I can't see or hear. So, all right. So if you're there, good.
I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Any questions? I guess not. So we have the incomplete and the complete Rasha, which is the flip, I should say the mirror of the complete and the incomplete tzaddik. So a Rasha, a wicked, this is going to be very interesting. Usually when Don, I probably called you a tzaddik 50 times. Many times I pat someone on the back and I say, you're a tzaddik. And it's more used as an expression. It's almost like you're a good guy. But
so you didn't really mean
it? But so if you wanted to really get there on a Tanya level, it's definitely a very high, lofty goal. But I would never call someone a Rasha, because that's insulting. A Rasha means a sinner. Literally, a Rasha means a wicked person. But the way it's understood is it's a sinner. That's the way, a Rasha is, in my Yiddish class, I'm going to probably use this expression that many of your grandparents probably were telling you. It's a wilde chaya. My father actually just told it to me the other day. A wilde chaya means like a wild animal. So a Rasha is someone who's not in control. A tzaddik doesn't have anything to control because all their urges are holy. Either they fought through it, they subdued the negative, the evil, or they're already there and it's an ally. By a Rasha is someone who sins, he slips, he makes mistakes, and he has desires and wants that are not holy and not pure and are very self-serving and even worse. But here's where it gets very interesting. And this may sound a little depressing. Chapter 11 is usually that moment in Tanya where a student of Tanya is like, whoa, does that mean I'm a Rasha? But realize that there's good to come. A Rasha is one who is not in control. He sins. He does things that are he shouldn't be doing. But the question is, how often is he doing them? Does it make a difference to be called a Rasha? Does it mean that they are doing it every day, or doing it every hour, or doing it once a year, or doing it once in a lifetime? According to chapter 11 of Tanya, all a Rasha means is that they're not in control. So really, it makes no difference if they are doing it every day, every month, or even if it's just once a year. If it just means that they can't control their urges, and when they have an impulse to do something, they just act on it, whether they're acting on it every time, or whether they're acting on it only once a week, they're still a Rasha, because a Rasha means that they're not in control. They can't prevent those impulses from taking over and acting on it. It's the Rasha is one who's giving the keys of the car to that king. Now, does it make a difference if the king is driving around recklessly once a day? Let me, Maddie, I think you'll appreciate this example. I know you like the examples. Imagine someone says, I get angry sometimes. And one time when I got angry, I even killed someone. But don't worry, it only happened once. It's not that worrisome. No, that person needs to get anger management and probably go to jail, even though they just did it once. But it just shows you what they're capable of, that they're not in control. Or if a person says, I sometimes when I'm driving, I get tired. And even sometimes I fall asleep. Would you say, okay, since it's only sometimes, it's not so important? Or you're going to say, no, that's crazy. You can't drive at night ever. Even though it's not often, but at that point, it makes no difference. Once they're doing it, that person should not be driving at night. So a Rasha is someone who is not in control. Technically, in terms of this example, they fall asleep at the wheel. Now, even if they only fall asleep at the wheel once a month, it just shows you that they fall asleep at the wheel. It doesn't make a difference, the frequency of it. So does that make sense? A Rasha, it makes no difference, the frequency of their mistakes, of their sins. It's just, Maddie, go ahead. I think you have a question.
I was just going to say, to me, that does the word responsibility come into it?
Of course.
Like if a Rasha understood what his limitations, or understood what his I say his or her liability was, and took responsibility, and then said, you know what, I know myself and I know that I cannot be trusted with this. So would that still be a Rasha, or would that be something in between, or what how does that come across?
So if a person is able to recognize that they have a responsibility and they're able to control themselves because of that responsibility that they have, which means a person may have an impulse to do something, but they're responsible and they're like, no, I can't just do that. I'm faithful. I'm in a relationship. So they hold themselves back. That is going to be the Beinoni. That's chapter 12. How to hold yourself back and how to realize that you are in control. Meaning even when you have those impulses, you're able to control them. So a tzaddik is one that doesn't even have any impulses for self. His impulses are all divine, are all holy, all pure. The Rasha is someone who has these impulses and he welcomes them in. He gives the key to them and says, go ahead, do what you want. So it makes no difference how frequent it is. The Beinoni is one who has those impulses, but he is able to control himself. And the one line for Tanya is, how could you control yourself? How are you able to, your thought, speech, and action, which is how those impulses try to take hold of you through speaking a certain way, acting a certain way, and thinking a certain way, it's in control. So by a Rasha, I'm going to give you 3 points that are important. There's 3 factors. One is, to be a Rasha, it makes no difference how frequent they're being Rasha, how frequent they're doing negative, they're doing sins. It's just the idea that they fall asleep at the wheel that already shows, it makes no difference the frequency of it, that they're already a Rasha, they're not in control. Number 2, this is a very interesting one. Tanya in chapter 11, it will tell us, it makes no difference the severity of what they're doing. Which means it doesn't make a difference if they're robbing a big bank or they're robbing a small bank. It makes a difference if they're yelling on a top pitch or they're just doing something else. If they're not in control, it makes no difference to what degree they're not in control. They're already a Rasha because they're just not in control. So it makes no difference the frequency. It also makes no difference the severity. And number 3, it makes no difference if it's coming out in your action, in your speech, or even if it's in your only in your thoughts. Hold on 1 second, let me just see. 1 second. Thought of sin worse than the actual physical act of sin because it is overwhelming the highest faculty of the mind. That's a very good point, Shira. So number 3 is, it's irrelevant if it's being acted upon, that impulse to do bad, and it's how it's taking you over and you're acting on it. It makes a difference if you're acting on it with an action, which means doing something that you shouldn't be doing. It makes a difference if it's just with your words, that you're speaking things that you shouldn't be speaking, which means, take a good example would be Lashon Hara, which it says we're not, even every day we all commit this. Lashon Hara is slander. Lashon Hara is speaking negatively about another, spreading a rumor about someone else. Hadassah, who's studying for her big international competition, knows all the levels of styles of Lashon Hara, which literally means the evil tongue, gossip and slander and stuff like that. It makes no difference if you're speaking it, but even if a person is just thinking, fantasizing, allowing their minds to go on a forbidden thought, even that would put them in the category of a Rasha. Now that's a very, very subtle level, because just to think, you're holding yourself back from talking it. You're just thinking about it. And if you remember, we explained the difference of the thoughts the way it is in the cognitive faculties of the soul powers, and the way it is actually coming out in our clothing, the thought, speech, and action. When you're thinking about something, it's allowing yourself to fantasize on something. You're welcoming. The story I gave is about the knock on the door. The person who wanted to learn how to stop having negative thoughts during prayers, so they knocked on the door of a big chassid, and the chassid never answered the door. What that means is you could have a pop-up. Someone could be knocking on your door, but you don't have to welcome it in. You don't have to click on that pop-up and see what's there. You don't have to welcome. You don't have to open the door and allow the thoughts to remain and be thought about in your mind. That's the thought that we were talking about, that the Rasha is not in control of. The Rasha doesn't control his thoughts, which means when a negative thought is coming up, he embraces it and allows himself to fantasize on it, and he doesn't push it away. Tanya, we're going to see soon, the next few chapters are crucially important. From chapter 10, which we're up to now, through chapter 17, it tells you about the fight by the Beinoni especially. So chapter 10 is the Tzaddik. Chapter 11 is the Rasha. Chapter 12 is the Beinoni. And now that we have the Beinoni, the war of fighting for control, the methods, the mechanism of how to control yourself. That's going to be chapter 12 and on. Right now, I'm just focusing on chapter 10 and 11 to see how it plays out in the three categories. So the three non-factors by a Rasha is it doesn't make a difference how often, even if it's infrequent. It doesn't make a difference the severity. And number three, it doesn't make a difference if it's in your thought, speech, or action. You're choosing to not control yourself, whether you're in your thought, speech, and action, and that makes you that makes the person under the category of Rasha. So we're not asking you to control your impulses, because that's beyond you. That's the way you're wired. You're hardwired from your soul powers. So you don't have control over the pop-up. You don't have control over who knocks on your doors, but you do have control if you're going to answer that knock. You do have control if you're going to allow that into your thought, speech, and action. So the Rasha doesn't control, which means the keys to the car are fully driven by the animal soul, and he welcomes them in. So when the pop-up comes, the knock is on the door, he allows it full control. So this is the first category of the Rasha, which is an incomplete Rasha, which means he's wicked, but he's not fully wicked, which means he doesn't always give full control to the animal soul. He sometimes gives control, but even if it's infrequent, that person is still a Rasha. So it's actually a really, really wide category. It could be a person who's robbing banks, a person who's really a nice guy. I would even refer to him as a tzaddik, not in Tanya terms, but as a friend. Oh, you're a tzaddik, you gave a nice donation, you meant well, you really care. But then there's times that they're just not in control. Because they're not in control, even if it's just occasionally, they're in the category of someone who just can't control themselves. They fall asleep at the wheel. So if that's a wide range, such a wide range, who is actually a Rasha Viralo? The next category is a Rasha, and it's actually bad for him. He's a complete Rasha. Who could actually fall in that category? So the difference is that Rasha is someone who doesn't regret what he is doing. An incomplete Rasha, the higher category, the first category of a Rasha we spoke about, and we'll end with this, the incomplete Rasha is someone who at least has remorse. He couldn't control himself, but he actually looks back and says, oh, I did it again. Come on. I could hold myself back. He actually feels bad for what he did. He regrets it.
Can you repeat that, Rabbi, please?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just missed the last, maybe 30 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Tracy? Who is that?
Yes. Yes, I'm Maddie's friend from Scotland.
Awesome. I'm so touched that you're part. What time is it for you?
Nearly 5:30.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. You're allowing me to call my Tanya class a worldwide class. So again, this is a very
absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
So because I just said that, I'm in the category of a Rasha because it's very self-serving now. Instead of it just being an altruistic Tanya Torah class, I'm actually doing it because it makes me look good that we have a worldwide class. I'm kidding. But I'll just repeat that last part again for you, Tracy, for sure. The
Thank you
difference
so
between
much.
the difference between a tzaddik that is completely tzaddik and a tzaddik that is incomplete tzaddik is that the incomplete tzaddik, even though they do things that they shouldn't and they're not in control, but they actually look back at what they did and they say, I regret what I did. I'm sorry for what I did. And they actually really mean it. They didn't want to fall asleep at the wheel, but they did it, and they feel bad for what they did. So they don't want to do it again, but it happens again. A complete Rasha and a completely wicked person, according to the Tanya, is someone who doesn't even regret it. He doesn't care. He has no remorse for what he did. That's how far off this Rasha is. He doesn't even regret it. So imagine, just to have some compassion over here, imagine, remember by the tzaddik, this is all a mirror. So by the tzaddik, his animal soul or his evil inclination, the complete tzaddik has made an ally, which means by the complete tzaddik, the animal soul actually became a friend, actually became an ally. It became like a second good inclination, helping it, guiding it. But the mirror to that is the complete Rasha. Imagine the turmoil that the trauma that the godly soul is experiencing, feeling trapped in this body of a Rasha, that it has no say. It's fully experiencing this horrible no remorse. It's almost, according to, we're going to learn this in chapter 11, it's almost like the godly soul of this Rasha is almost like it's an outer body experience. He's not even really there fighting anymore. He's watching it from outside of the body. He's not really present. So that is a little bit of the two tzaddiks and the two Rashas. And hopefully next week we'll learn chapter 10 and we'll try to squeeze in chapter 11 inside. And the week after will be the really important one. That'll be chapter 12, which is the Beinani, which is why you are all here, is to know about the Beinani. So once again, we're learning from this book. It's called, it's the Tanya book, but there's many translations. I do highly urge or recommend, it's called the Practical Tanya. I've been trying to avoid reading from the text in case someone doesn't have the text with them, but I do recommend you can find this on Amazon or elsewhere. If you need resources, if Amazon is delayed because of COVID, because of the coronavirus, I could find you other sources where you could get here sooner. And hopefully next week we'll learn it in the text. And just for calendars, I don't know how long we're going to be keeping it this way. I hope that you're able to still understand it as well as if it was in person. But next week will be a regular class. It's Wednesday, April 1st. And the week after that is actually going to be the holiday of Passover. So we're going to be skipping those 2 Wednesdays of April 8th, which is the night of the Seder. Actually, April 8th is the night of the Seder, and April 15th as well. Those are both holiday days. On my calendar, it's saying it's tax day, but I'm pretty sure that they're delaying taxes for this season. So next week will be regular, and the week after that will actually, the next class after that will be April 22nd. All right, everyone. L'chaim, I'm going to be giving a Yiddish class today at 12. And Adina is going to be giving a challah tomorrow at 5, and a Pesach class tomorrow also at 7:30. All right, everyone. Shalom for now, and hopefully we'll see you soon in good health.
Shalom. Thank you.
You're welcome.